The products of the curriculum have more confidence, can communicate better, have developed the skills to do research and projects in various areas, and have learned how to learn.
Recently, the government of Uganda, through the Ministry of Education, released 2024 UCE results. These results are different from the one that we've been seeing previously. So these are the results from the new curriculum that was rolled out in 2020. So government ya Uganda in 2020 yavayo nefulumya a new curriculum that was going to be followed and is being followed up to now. Okulabanga we transit from the old curriculum that was where the grading was Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 and Division 4. So this one is for grade A, grade B, grade C, grade D and E, and result 1 and result 2. So I'm going to explain to you, or I'm going to elaborate more how this system works, especially to those who didn't understand, because I've been seeing a lot of messages, a lot of complaints nga bagamba zino results or ezafulumye grading eno yeetagisa omuntu okubanga nga wa PhD okugitegeera naye ngenda kuba nkumenyeramu okulabanga you understand this grading. So far, this curriculum, the UCE lower secondary curriculum results, zero from A, B, C, D, and E. Grade A is equivalent to distinction 1 and distinction 2. Grade B is equivalent to grade 3 and grade 4. Grade C is equivalent to C5, C6. Grade D is equivalent to Pass 7, Pass 8. And E is equivalent to F9. That means omwana yenna afunye grade E kitegeeza aba agudde aba afunye F9. Walimu kubanga fe abasoma biseera ebyo ebiyiseeko emabega baali batugradinga division 1, 2, 3 and 4. Ate nga we baba batumakingira mu division, division 1, division 2, division 3, division 4. Kale no, grade 3, grade 4, what. Naye nga ngenda kunyonyola how this system work. So far, according to UNEB Executive Director, that is Dan Odong, the board introduced a new grading system where performance is reported by achievement levels indicated by letters grade A, B, C, D, and E. These are the results of the first cohort of candidates under the competence-based curriculum that we are presenting to you, Odong said. In 2020, the government rolled out the competence-based curriculum for the lower secondary school level. This presented a requirement for assessment reforms that introduced new components of continuous assessment, OCA, and project work on top of the various activities on top of the existing end of cycle examinations. Ekinyuso kiri wano, project work and various activities. That means nti abaana bagenda kubeera hands on. This new curriculum is more of practical skills plus examinations zebadde bakola. So that means omwana agenda kuba abeera assessed the moment wanayingirira la secondary level. Kati okutandika ku S3 okutuuka mu S4 bagenda bakuba bategeera omwana oyo weakness ye eriwa era strength ye eri luddawa.
The new competency-based curriculum assessment, Mama, has been successful. Mama, during the marking, the board also suffered pressure from scorers' strikes for increased pay, as I had occasion to brief you about earlier. Your guidance on the course of action was well taken, and management is taking appropriate action.
Odong explained that the board embarked on various activities in preparation to assess the first cohort of learners following a roadmap that had been developed, the board had to build capacity for its staff, given that the assessment of the curriculum would fundamentally shift from that was then in practice. So from shifting from the old curriculum to the new curriculum, that means that the board of directors oba board ya UNEB olukiiko lwa UNEB olukulu lwali lulina okutuula lusale entoto okulaba nga lusomesa abo abagenda okuteeka enkola eno oba curriculum eno empya okugisomesa abaana nabo okubeera nga baginnyonnyoka, kubanga by the time we yatandikira nga n'abasomesa bennyini tebagimanyi. So ng'olukiiko olwa UNEB lwalina okutuula lusomese abasomesa, lutendeke abasomesa. By the time this new curriculum rolls out, nga buli omu agitegeera era nga n'abasomesa basobola ojja adopting obulungi ssaako n'abaana. The board developed formats of students' identification to facilitate registration of senior 3 and 4 learners and tracking their continuous assessment scores in all schools. A unique format of numbers was also developed to identify learners in schools without examination centers. Odong reported that the board developed assessment tools, guidelines, training materials, capacity building for teachers as item writers and scorers, benchmarking to pick best practices and sensitization of key education stakeholders. The board was able to put in place all the necessary assessment tools, including an in-house software code named Assessment Management Information System. A total of 63,041 teachers were trained. Among those, 43,741 were males and 19,300 were female teachers that were trained. The training was on assessment of continuous assessment with the emphasis on the use of digital assessment tools that the board had developed and circulated. The assessment was successfully administered and the results have been released. The new grading system is a significant departure from the old system where candidates were ranked in divisions.
Therefore, Mama, a unique format of numbers to identify the learners in schools without UNEB centers was also developed. This was then followed by development of assessment tools, guidelines, training materials, capacity building for teachers as item writers and scorers, benchmarking to pick best practices, and sensitization of key education stakeholders. Mama, the board was able to put in place all the necessary assessment tools, including an in-house software codenamed Assessment Management Information System, or AMIS. We trained a total of 63,041 teachers, of whom 43,741 were male and 19,300 were female. These were teachers of Senior 3 and Senior 4, and we did this throughout the country, and the assessment was, the training was on the assessment of continuous assessment with emphasis on the use of digital assessment tools that we had developed and circulated. The training also included assessment of the project work, which, Mama, is a mandatory component of the curriculum assessment. We retooled 5,200 of the targeted 800 existing examiners to equip them with new skills of scoring under the competency-based assessment.
So the scores are combined in ratio of 20% continuous assessment, 80% end of cycle examination, and the achievement levels are indicated by A, B, C, D, and E. Under the competency-based assessment, there is no ranking of candidates in two divisions. As in the previous curriculum, a candidate will qualify for the UCE certificate if he or she obtain a competency level grade of D in at least one subject, Sat 4. Odongo explained the meaning of each letters, and grade A is described as exceptional, and the candidate who has this grade A is exceptional candidate or learner who demonstrates an extraordinary level of competence by applying innovatively and creatively acquired knowledge and skills in real life situation. Grade B is described as outstanding, and candidate who has this grade B demonstrates a high level of competence by applying the acquired knowledge and skills in real life situations. Grade C is described as satisfactory, and candidate who has this grade C demonstrates an adequate level of competency by applying in acquired knowledge and skills in real life situations. Grade D is described as the basic, and the candidate who has this grade D demonstrates a minimum level of competence in applying the acquired knowledge and skills in real life situation. Grade E is described as elementary, and a candidate who has this grade demonstrates below the basic level of competence in applying the acquired knowledge and skills. So this indicates that if a student gets grade A, grade B, grade C, and grade D, those ones have automatically passed and they qualify for UCE certificate and transcripts. While a student who gets E in subject, that means that student has automatically failed and does not qualify for UCE certification. You understand the point? So this is the grade, and from grade A to grade D, that means a student has gotten result 1, and from E, that means he or she has failed and has to get result 2. So it is up to the student to either repeat the class S4. The overall results show that 350,146 or 98% of the candidate who qualified for UCE certificate. This will be indicated on their result transcript and certificates as result 1. Candidate who did not fulfill the condition for the award will have result 2 indicated on their transcripts. This includes candidates who did not sit for all 8 subjects or those who did not register for the compulsory subjects. You understand? So basically and in brief, that is what this new curriculum is all about. It is more of practical. So they assess students and according to their abilities and knowledge. So that means they assess the weakness and strength of a student. We are transiting from more of a theory to more of practical, because by our times, during our times, twakolanga more of theory. Kati this one is more practical. Wabanga computer omwana ng'agituulako. Wekuba like that. So that's what assessment is going to be. Era ne government ebeera egenda kubanga assessing abaana or direct using these students learners identification numbers. So zezo zebawandiisa nti omwana ne wava mu ssomero ddala ogenda mu ddala, they are able to track his or her assessment records. Omwana abadde performing atya, assessment ye ebadde etya, kubanga it's going to be digital. Kale no mu bufunze yeyo new curriculum ya rolling out. Kankulekere speech ya First Lady atenga Minister of Education Kataha Museveni nga naye ayogera ku new curriculum n'ebigezo bino ebyafulumye. Kusibulidde wano amanya yenze Mr. Essential Worker tera yenze amatagatafa tuwirabira okusubscribinga okusharinga ate ne comment yo wobanga olina kyotegedde cause mbawadde ngezezaako kubamenyera what this new curriculum and this new grading is all about. Basibulidde wano kube Katonda n'ensi yange.
My colleagues, honorable ministers of state present here or today, the chairperson and members of the Education and Sports Committee of Parliament, the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education and Sports, and your team, the chairperson and members of the board, UNEB, the Executive Director, UNEB, and your team, the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I must thank God so much today for this day that He has made. We have every reason to rejoice and be glad in it, as UNEB presents to us yet again results of 2 examinations done concurrently. I really thank the chairperson and the board of UNEB, the executive director and his team at the UNEB Secretariat for a very good job done. Yes, please give them a very loud clap. I recall that last year I released the UCE examination results on the 15th of February 2024. This time we are ready to release today on the 11th of February 2025. That we are a few days earlier must have meant a lot of dedication and hard work. I say again, thank you, UNEB, so much. Now, talking about hard work, it was reassuring to hear that even in this time of hectic business of developing the structures and processes for managing the continuous assessment and end-of-cycle examination under the new lower secondary curriculum, UNEB was also working on attaining of certification from the International Organization for Standardization, as you heard the chair of UNEB explain to us, for ISO 9001-2015 standard for quality management system. This should give further assurance to the public that UNEB is committed to observance of quality processes in executing its mandate. Yes, as we release the results for 2024 UCE candidates, we have candidates that sat examination of the new lower secondary curriculum, and the last cohort, as you heard, of candidates who sat UCE under the old lower secondary curriculum. That was a lot of work in this past year. The latter are the learners who had missed the 2023 UCE examination for various reasons, or those who had not made it and wanted to repeat the examination. This opportunity was provided, as you heard my colleagues explain. It was provided so that such learners were not disadvantaged. I am glad that as a ministry, we thought through this, and UNEB presented a proposal for a one-off UCE examination in 2024 for learners who had been using the previous lower secondary curriculum. So we thank God that we have the results to release today for the last UCE examination of the old lower secondary curriculum. As you heard, so I ask the selection committee now to ensure that the 2024 cohort of candidates who took the UCE examination under the old curriculum and qualify for post-UCE placement, that they will not be left out, by God's grace. For those learners who yet again did not avail themselves this last opportunity at UCE examination under the previous lower secondary curriculum, I encourage them to look out for other opportunities of progression in education and training through the vocational pathway. You do not have to drop out of formal education at all. You can try again through this other pathway. So we praise God in a special way now that we are finally releasing the results of the first cohort of candidates under the new lower secondary curriculum. As I said earlier, this curriculum was rolled out in 2020. As you all know, the start was not smooth, as occasioned among other disruptions by COVID-19 pandemic. Indeed, many people thought that this curriculum was something that government would soon drop. This perhaps explains why we kept getting reports that many schools were stuck in teaching the old curriculum. However, we remained steadfast in implementing the new lower secondary curriculum despite those hiccups, because the curriculum was designed to develop competencies in all the areas of learning. It was the best for our country and our plans for the future, using the head, the hands, and the heart. Learners who have gone through this curriculum have the ability for self-learning, as you heard from all the colleagues who spoke before me. I'm glad to hear from the Executive Director, UNEB, that, for instance, in science practical work, candidates use a scenario and materials provided and plan their own investigations using the science process skills. The assessment tasks are geared towards solving problems in the real world. These are the citizens the country needs to be coming out of our education system now. They will contribute greatly to the realization of our national vision, which focuses on transformation from peasantry to modern and prosperous Uganda. To effectively assess competence-based learning, achievement of the learners was assessed at school level, and the continuous assessment scores, which now form part of the overall learners' UCE examination grade. This has reduced the impact of just a one-shot end of cycle examination. Combination of continuous assessment and end of cycle scores gives a holistic picture of the learner's achievement. We have seen it in the Executive Director's report, exemplified by the deaf candidates whose performance has significantly improved. I call on the professionalism of the teachers to ensure the integrity of the continuous assessment scores submitted to UNEB. This is very important because that's how we get the whole learning of any one of the students of the work they do throughout the year. Validity and reliability must be observed in generating these continuous assessment scores so that they reflect the true levels of achievement by the learner. I ask UNEB, within the resources available, to institute a robust training monitoring, and evaluation system to ensure that schools comply with the guidelines issued on continuous assessment and project work assessment. I thank the National Curriculum Development Center for the hard work in putting the new lower secondary competence-based curriculum in place. I also want to thank the parents that provided input from a parent's perspective during the review of the final draft of the new lower secondary curriculum. Maybe we don't thank the parents enough, but we must remember that they also have a role, and we don't forget to thank them. I call on the country to accept this change, which is for the better. I know that we have for a long time been used to aggregates and divisions, as you heard Mr. Odong say, leading to ranking of schools. This was always a source of very unethical practice by many schools to survive in the unhealthy competitions that had developed. Therefore, I'm happy to see that the NCDC and UNEB have now come up with a new approach that eliminates ranking candidates by divisions attained. Relatedly, I have also learned that the Office of Personal Data Protection has drawn UNEB to the provisions within the Data Protection and Privacy Act, Cap 97, that prohibits the publication of personal data of children. As such, UNEB has been informed by the Personal Data Protection Office, in quotes, that publicly disclosing the names, photographs, and individual grades of learners on boards or other publicly accessible platforms exposes such learners to harassment, stigma, and emotional distress. Accordingly, schools are advised now to use alternative methods of sharing examination outcomes without compromising student privacy by way of disclosing personal learner information or data. Therefore, I now task UNEB and all the other examination and assessment agencies under the Ministry of Education and Sports, together with the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education and Sports, to liaise with the Data Protection and Privacy Office for further appreciation of this guidance on how to fully comply with the Data Protection and Privacy Act and its regulations in the management of assessment and examination results. Thereafter, the Permanent Secretary shall formally communicate to all education institutions of learning by way of a circular on how to always ensure privacy of individual learners' results. For now, in keeping with the Data Protection and Privacy Act, Cap 97, and its regulations, schools and institutions of learning should desist from all forms of public display of individual learner academic results. Now, that said, I must send hearty congratulations to our learners who have had their places sealed in history as the first cohort to sit for the UCE examinations under the new lower secondary curriculum. That is competence-based and have qualified for the award of the certificate. I thank the teachers who guided them through the learner-centered teaching approach which this curriculum requires. I thank the parents again and guardians who supported the learners, especially in the project work. And once again, I thank UNEB Board, Secretariat, and all the people who participated in the assessment and scoring process of the 2024 USE examination. Lastly, I wish to inform all schools and the general public that the selection dates for the Senior 5 class of 2025 are the 20th to 21st Feb 2025. The first term reporting date for the Senior 5 class of 2025 is Monday, the 3rd March 2025. It is now my singular honor to release the 2024 UCE results for both the last cohort of examinations under the previous lower secondary curriculum and the pioneer class under the new lower secondary curriculum. I thank you and God bless you. Thank you, Ministry of Education, UNEB, committee in Parliament, everybody related to this work. I thank you and God bless you.
Mama, with your permission, may I request that we resume our seats for a few minutes to receive a